This video is about living in Washington, D.C. for 2 years. Somebody who wanted to practice foreign policy and international development, and I think the whole idea behind working and getting a degree in political science was to eventually end up in a place like Washington, D.C., having a job as a foreign policy analyst. That's really what excited me the most. Understanding foreign policy in the Middle East, foreign policy in China, foreign policy in sub-Saharan Africa. This was all very exciting. And I still remember the first geography class that I took in Oregon State University in 2006. I just felt like I was entering a new world, an exciting world, and I was just getting in touch with world events. And even though I really like nature, science is really not the right career for me. And right now I'm not pursuing politics anymore. I'm pursuing AI. But the political world has always been very interesting. When I was in Washington, D.C., I was 3 meters from Bernie Sanders in a reception, and then I almost ran over Nancy Pelosi on a car once. So this was all very interesting, very exciting to be part of this world. The 3 organizations I worked for, one was a tour guide, and many Americans and many people from other places have saved their entire dimes to come and see the monuments of Washington, D.C. This is like the White House, the Abe Lincoln, the Thomas Jefferson, the Capitol building, and just being able to ride a tour and take them to this particular places and just give them information about how these organizations work and what do they do was just a very exciting opinion and very exciting thing to do. The political world just really involves to kiss a lot of ass, and that's really something I did not necessarily liked. I mean, I just really hate kissing ass, and it's something I was never really good at. It also involves saying a lot of things that you don't really mean or you don't really believe in. But all that being said, it's a very interesting world. It has a lot of glamour, it has a lot of showiness, and really living in Washington, D.C. was just the epitome of a lot of my interest in political science, which started with my master's degree in Oregon and my geography class in Corvallis, where I was like teaching about world affairs. I mean, living in D.C., like I would basically spend a lot of time just going to a lot of receptions. There was all this free beer, free whiskey, a lot of food, and then people talking about the Balkan states, people talking about Ukraine, people talking about Turkey, Brookings, Connecticut Avenue, Brookings, the Carnegie. The think tank at the time was called Link Tank, and it had quite a lot of events. It also had some job postings. Everybody in suits, Many times I would just go to parties associated with the main event. It was just a very exciting time, and I was there during the Obama administration. I was there again during the Trump administration. That being said, the Washington D.C. world is just very cliquey. It's very elitist. It's really hard to break in. Like a couple times, I really never felt I was really invited into the events or the social gatherings that I wanted. It was just a hit or miss, and people associated with events like would judge you if you did not have like an establishment, a nice car, a certain amount of money. But just being in DC was like, just the whole experience was just very exciting. For example, I remember once I was in a party in Columbia Heights, and they invited an Arab belly dancer. So just having the experience of being there with a belly dancer was just very unique. I've never been or seen a belly dancer. And then I basically broke into one of the rooms, and it was just full of people with power suits, government workers, snorting coke, and I really had not had that much exposure to the establishment world in that way. So the whole experience was very unique, very interesting for me. I still remember that I had all this fear of just moving to DC, not being able to fit in, not being selected. I think I have a video about this. This was relatively brave thing that I did. I also worked for a USAID Latin American organization in K Street. Most of the people had like policy degrees. Then I worked for a civil rights NGO, also K Street. K Street is kind of like the Wall Street for politics. And I also worked for Bread for the City, which is a community development organization. I remember that year, like 2014, it was quite a year of just going to events and events and events, just meeting a lot of people, being in Adams Morgan, being in Petworth, being in Meridian Park, just playing Ultimate Frisbee, being in the Great Mall, playing Ultimate Frisbee, playing basketball in Georgetown by the swimming pool. It was just like a year that I just constantly was going to events, constantly was like meeting people. I remember I took some jobs like waiting tables, and just the whole experience was very exciting. I think the first year, 2014, I mostly stayed in hostels just because rent is so expensive. So a lot of the people who work in hostels worked at the UN, work at the State Department, and they would just have a lot of worldly knowledge. Like there would be language meetups, and a lot of people came from living in China, living in Singapore, living in South Africa, and they would just share the view of how the world worked. So So this was very exciting. Hang on, I want to make sure that this is recording the right way. Yes, it is. I was actually thinking about a friend that I used to be. I was relatively close, and then she kind of moved to the States and she got an American citizenship, and she kind of like changed. And I think people just change. You have to be in constant motion. So the second year I was in DC, I was really indoctrinated or taken care of by a guy who has a PhD from Princeton. His name is Dan Martin, and he basically taught me a lot about DC. He helped me line up contacts with people in the international development banks, with the people in the World Bank. I never really ended up getting the jobs I wanted, so I ended up guiding in order to leave. But it was quite an interesting experience to just be part of that atmosphere. I remember my favorite bar was the 18th Street Lounge. This is in DuPont Circle. Yeah, DuPont Circle had many events that were just very interesting. Just being there in DuPont Circle, going to events. I mean, I kind of like idealized me. Just ended up getting a great government job, and then buying a house in Columbia Heights in front of the Rock Creek Park, and then making this nice house out of wood, and then eventually like marrying like a cute like foreign policy analyst. But that did not really turn out the way I expected. So usually what happens is that foreign policy analysts that say work for the White House or work for, say, the State Department, their job is really to go to a lot of think tank events and get informed on what is a current situation. Like, for example, the Biafra war in Cameroon. So they just go there, they get informed of how that situation is panning out, and then they make decisions to try to understand how to deal with the situation. This is just they write reports, they write policy memos, they go to World Bank events, they hang out with World Bank people. So it's just a very it's kind of like an interdisciplinary place. And Washington DC itself has a lot of parks, a lot of green areas. It's just a relatively fun place to be, even though it has some disadvantages. Some of the disadvantages of Washington DC is just a very segregated city. If you hang out in the wrong neighborhood, you can get killed. And also some of the establishment are just like not the nicest people. They're not friendly. They only hang out in their own cliques. Anyway, I hope you like my video.